It's the middle of the night where you are, and your body swears it's noon. This groggy, wired but tired ache isn't weakness. It's a master clock inside your brain, still keeping time for a place you've left. Can it be set right again? The strange part: no amount of willpower moves that clock. What resets it is light, and mistimed light only digs the misery deeper. Welcome to Sleepy Science. There's a gentler truth waiting here. The clock that drifted out of time was built to find its way back, guided by nothing more than the right light at the right hour. So for now, let the wrong time zone tension loosen from your shoulders. Somewhere behind your eyes, a small clock is already listening for the signal home. Tonight, we follow that signal, slowly, starting with the very first thing your brain checks the moment it stirs. Somewhere deep in your brain, just above the place where the nerves from your eyes cross, sits a cluster of about 20,000 cells, no larger than a grain of rice. This is the suprachiasmatic nucleus, and it is the master clock of your body. It keeps time across roughly 24 hours, telling your organs when to wake, when to rest, when to warm and when to cool. When you cross the world in a single night, this clock does not travel at the speed of the plane. It stays behind, still counting the hours of the place you left. Underneath everything tonight lies one quiet question. How does a body clock find its way back to the time it is actually living in? The suprachiasmatic nucleus is small, yet its reach is enormous. Nestled within the hypothalamus, it sends its signals to nearly every system you have. Your heart, your liver, your hormones, your rising and falling temperature. Think of it less as a single ticking watch and more as a conductor standing before an orchestra, setting the tempo the rest of the body plays to. Each of its neurons keeps a rhythm of its own, and together they lock into a steady, shared beat. Damage this tiny region in animals, and the neat rise and fall of daily activity dissolves into scattered noise. The order you feel in an ordinary day begins here, in this one small and faithful place. Here is something curious about your inner clock. It does not actually run at exactly 24 hours. Left in constant dim light, with no sunrise, no clocks, no quis atal, the human body settles into a rhythm closer to 24 hours and about 11 minutes. Scientists learned this by studying volunteers who lived for weeks in caves and windowless rooms. Their days quietly drifted, each a little longer than the turning of the earth. This means your clock must be nudged every single day back into step with the planet. That small daily correction is normal and invisible until you fly across many time zones, and the correction it needs suddenly becomes far too large to make all at once. What is actually ticking inside those clock cells is not a spring or a pendulum, but a loop of genes. A handful of them, with names like clock, BMAL, 1, per aromina, and cry, switch each other on and off in a cycle that takes close to a day to complete. One set of genes builds proteins. Those proteins slowly accumulate, then quietly turn their own genes off. They break down, and the cycle begins again. This molecular rhythm hums inside nearly every cell you carry. It is astonishingly old, a version of the same timing machinery found in plants, in flies, in fungi. Your jet lag, in the end, is written into the slow turning of these ancient genetic gears. Because your clock drifts a little each day, it needs a signal from the outside world to stay aligned. And the strongest signal by far is light. Deep in your eyes sit special cells, separate from the ones you see images with, packed with a pigment called melanopsin. They do not care about shapes or colors. They simply measure brightness and report it straight to the master clock. When morning light reaches them, they tell the suprachiasmatic nucleus that the day has begun. This is how your inner time normally stays wedded to the sun. And it is exactly this link that jet lag confuses. When the light around you no longer matches the hour your clock still believes it to be. As evening comes, your clock quietly sends a message to a small gland near the center of the brain, the pineal gland, and it begins to release a hormone called melatonin. Melatonin is not a sedative that knocks you out. It is more like a soft signal that says, gently, night has arrived. Its levels rise a couple of hours before your usual bedtime, peak in the deep middle of the night, and fade before dawn. This slow tide is one of the clearest readouts of your biological night. When you travel across time zones, your melatonin keeps rising on its old schedule, flooding you with the feeling of night while the new city is still bright with afternoon. Just as one hormone marks your night, another marks your morning. Cortisol, so often cast only as a stress hormone, follows a clean daily rhythm set by your clock. It climbs steeply in the last hours of sleep, surges to a peak shortly after you wake, and then drifts down across the day to its lowest point near midnight. That morning rise is part of what lifts you into alertness, quietly readying the body for the hours ahead. After a long flight, this rhythm is stranded in the old zone. Your cortisol may peak while the new city sleeps, or lie flat when you most need to feel awake. One more instrument still playing yesterday's score. Your body temperature is not the same all day long. Under the guidance of your clock, it rises and falls in a smooth curve of about 1 to 2 degrees Fahrenheit. It sinks to its lowest in the early hours before dawn, usually around 4 or 5 in the morning, and climbs to its warmest in the late afternoon and early evening. This gentle swing is deeply tied to sleep. You fall asleep most easily as your temperature is falling, and you wake as it begins to rise again. When jet lag scatters your rhythms, your temperature reaches its cold, sleepy floor at the wrong local hour, pulling you down towards sleep when the day around you has only just begun. Consider what actually happens when you fly. The plane carries your body across the planet in a matter of hours, and the clocks on the wall leap forward or back to match the new place. But the clock inside you cannot leap. It stays where it was, still marking the rhythm of the city you left. If you fly east across 6 time zones, your body may insist that it is the middle of the night, while your destination insists that it is midday. This gap, between the time your body keeps and the time the world around you keeps, is the whole of jet lag. Everything you feel afterward flows from that single, quiet disagreement between 2 kinds of time. Notice how the shape of the problem has changed. We began by picturing jet lag as simple tiredness, the ordinary cost of a long trip. But tiredness fades with one good night. This does not. What you are carrying is not a lack of rest, but a mismatch of time. An internal clock still faithfully keeping the hour of somewhere else. Scientists call this state internal desynchrony, and it quietly reframes the question we are following. The task is not really to sleep more. It is to move an entire internal clock, gene by gene and hormone by hour, until it agrees once more with the world outside. How a body manages that is where the rest of the night gently leads. You might wish your inner clock could simply be reset like a wristwatch, spun forward to the new hour in a moment. It cannot. The clock shifts only gradually, and in most people, it can move roughly 1 hour per day. Sometimes a little more, sometimes less. That is why a journey across 8 time zones is not undone in a single night, but unwinds slowly across many days. Each morning, the outside world nudges your clock a small step toward local time, and each day it inches a little closer. The slowness can feel like failure, yet it is simply the pace of the machinery. A clock built of chemistry, moving at the speed of chemistry, not of wishing. Not all journeys unsettle you equally. Flying west, you chase the sun, and your day stretches longer. You stay up later and sleep in, which tends to come fairly easily, because your clock already drifts toward longer days. Flying east is harder. Now the day is cut short, and you must fall asleep and wake earlier than your body wants, forcing the clock to jump ahead against its natural drift. This is why the trip home so often feels worse in one direction than the other. The very same number of time zones can cost you more going east than going west. Your body, it turns out, would far rather delay than advance. The severity of jet lag rises with the number of time zones you cross. Slip across 1 or 2, and your clock absorbs the change with barely a stumble. Cross 5, or 8, or 10, and the gap between inner and outer time grows into something your body can no longer quietly ignore. As a rough rule, the more zones behind you, the more days you will need for the clock to catch up, often close to a day of recovery for each zone when you travel east. A long flight due north or south, through the same band of longitude, brings no jet lag at all. It is not distance that unsettles you. It is time. Here is a subtle truth about recovery. Your rhythms do not all move at the same speed. Your sleep-wake cycle may begin adjusting within a few days, while your temperature rhythm and your hormones lag further behind, each shifting at its own unhurried rate. For a while, then, Your body is not simply on the wrong time. It is on several wrong times at once. This is the deeper meaning of internal desynchrony. Not one clock stranded abroad, but a whole set of clocks scattered across different hours, temporarily out of step with one another as much as with the world outside. The fog you feel is partly the sensation of your own systems disagreeing about what time it truly is. The master clock in your brain is not the only clock you carry. Nearly every organ and nearly every cell holds a clock of its own. In your liver, your kidneys, your heart, your skin, even the quiet lining of your gut. Each keeps its own version of the same genetic rhythm. And in ordinary life, the brain's clock keeps them all gently synchronized, like a conductor keeping 100 musicians in time. When you fly, the master clock begins responding to the new light. But these peripheral clocks are slower to follow. For a while, the conductor has changed tempo while much of the orchestra plays on. An inner music briefly, quietly out of tune. Think of how strange your appetite feels after a long flight. Hungry at midnight. Indifferent to breakfast. Your stomach convinced it is a different hour than the kitchen clock. This is your gut's own clock speaking. The digestive system runs on a daily rhythm, preparing enzymes and hormones for the times you usually eat. After crossing zones, that rhythm is still tuned to meals in the old city. Food arriving at the new local hours meets a gut that is simply not ready for it, which is why digestion can feel sluggish and uneasy for days. The unsettled stomach of travel is not a weakness or a fault. It is only another clock, still faithfully keeping the time of home. Gather the pieces together, and the familiar misery of jet lag begins to make quiet sense. The daytime heaviness, the wide-awake nights, the mind moving as if through water, the flattened mood and the dull, distant headache. None of these are random. They are what it feels like from the inside when your body is asked to be awake during its biological night and to sleep during its biological day. Every symptom is a reading from a clock pointed at the wrong hour. Understanding this can soften the experience a little. You are not broken, and you are not weak. You are simply a finely timed creature, briefly living in 2 time zones at once. Jet lag does not only make sleep shorter, it changes the very shape of the sleep you do get. Dreaming sleep, known as REM, is tightly bound to your temperature rhythm, tending to cluster in the hours when your body is coolest, near dawn in your home zone. When that cold hour now falls in the middle of the local afternoon, your nights arrive stripped of much of their usual dreaming, while sleep tries to break through at odd times of the day. You may wake at 3 in the morning, fully alert, then fade helplessly after lunch. The architecture of a night's rest, so carefully arranged by the clock, is temporarily pulled out of its place. Return for a moment to melatonin, your hormone of biological night. After travel, it keeps rising on the schedule of the place you left. Fly east, and it may not begin climbing until the small hours of the local morning, leaving you wide awake and restless through the new evening. Then heavy and clouded when the sun returns. Fly west, and it may surge in the early evening, dragging your eyelids down while the city is still awake around you. The hormone itself is doing nothing wrong. It is simply announcing night on the old timetable. Much of what you feel as jet lag is this single, quiet signal, arriving hours out of step with the sky. Cortisol, the hormone of morning, tells a matching story. Its steep dawn rise is meant to meet the beginning of your day, lifting you toward wakefulness just as the light returns. Stranded in the old zone, that rise now comes at the wrong moment, surging while the new city sleeps. So you snap awake before dawn, or lying flat through a morning when you most need to feel sharp. The alertness you keep reaching for simply is not scheduled to arrive. This is part of why willpower alone does so little against jet lag. You are not fighting laziness. You are waiting on a hormone that is still keeping an appointment in another part of the world. You do not actually need an airplane to feel a version of this. Stay up late and sleep in across a weekend. Then drag yourself to an early Monday, and you create in miniature the very same mismatch. Your clock on one schedule, your life on another. Researchers call it social jet lag, and many people carry a mild form of it week after week without ever leaving home. Recognizing this can be strangely comforting on a sleepless night in a distant city. The disorientation you feel is not exotic or rare. It is an amplified echo of something your body already knows well. The ordinary ache of living slightly out of time with the clock inside you. Your alertness, too, follows the clock in a shape you can almost feel. There is a deep trough in the small hours, roughly 3 to 5 in the morning, when your body is least able to stay awake, and a smaller, gentler dip in the early afternoon. Ordinarily, these lulls fall while you sleep or slow naturally. After crossing time zones, the deep trough can land squarely in your working afternoon, pulling you towards sleep in the middle of a conversation, while its opposite peak keeps you humming with energy long after midnight. The rise and fall of your own wakefulness is not a matter of discipline. It is a tide, and the tide is still set to another shore. Of all your rhythms, core body temperature is one of the most stubborn to move, and one of the most telling. Its lowest point acts almost like an anchor for sleep, the moment your body is most fully surrendered to rest. Days after landing, that cold anchor may still fall at the hour it did back home, quietly overriding the new schedule you are trying to keep. This is why, even lying in a comfortable bed at a sensible local bedtime, sleep can refuse to come. Your temperature has simply not yet reached its sleepy floor. The body is patient, and it is honest. It will not pretend to be tired at an hour its own chemistry still insists is day. Picture, once more, that tiny conductor within your brain, and the vast orchestra of clocks it leads throughout your body. In an ordinary life, the music is seamless. Temperature, hormones, digestion, sleep, all rising and falling in graceful agreement. Jet lag is the sound of that orchestra briefly scattered. The conductor has turned to face a new light and begun a new tempo, but the players follow at their own speeds. Some quick, some slow, so that for a time the piece is played in fragments. What you feel as fog and unease is that scattering, heard from within. And like any orchestra, it is entirely capable of finding its way back into a single, unified rhythm. So we arrive at the heart of what jet lag truly is. It is not fatigue, and it is not frailty. It is a physical clock, built of genes and hormones and warmth, still faithfully keeping the time of a place you have already left, and a body waiting, patiently, for that clock to move. We have watched the pieces gather, the master clock above the eyes, the drifting near 24-hour beat, the tides of melatonin and cortisol, the slow swing of temperature, the scattered clocks in every organ. What remains unanswered is the one thing that matters most far from home. If the clock cannot be forced and shifts only about an hour a day, then what can actually move it? That is where the next part begins. You've been with us a while now, and your breathing has likely softened without your noticing. A soft subscribe helps another restless traveler find this quiet clock too. Now, let's pause together, one sleepy soul at a time. Right now, in the dark behind your eyes, that small cluster of cells is still counting. Steady, tireless, keeping the hour of somewhere you can no longer see. You don't have to correct it. You couldn't. Not by wanting to. The question that just opened, what can actually move a clock like this, is not abstract tonight. It is happening in your own chest, your own warmth, the slow fall of your temperature toward its floor. Feel how your breath has lengthened on its own. Somewhere in you, without instruction, the shift has quietly already begun. And from here, we follow how it happens. In the first days after a long flight, an ordinary afternoon can feel strangely underwater. Thoughts slow, eyelids heavy, the world a little muffled. This daytime grogginess is not weakness, and it is not simply the tiredness of travel. It is your internal clock, still keeping home time, telling your body to sleep while the sky outside insists on noon. The alerting signal that normally lifts you through the day arrives hours late, and a sleep pressure chemical called adenosine lingers where it should have cleared. Your brain is awake by obligation, not by rhythm. Understanding this softens the frustration. The fog is a clock, quietly out of place. Then night arrives, and the opposite quietly unfolds. You lie in a dark, still room, doing everything right. Yet your mind hums with a stubborn, wide-awake clarity. On home time, this hour is your late morning, a stretch when your body is built to be alert enough to resist sleep entirely. Melatonin, the hormone that should be rising now to usher you down, is still waiting for its old schedule. So you watch the ceiling, puzzled that rest refuses to come, This nighttime wakefulness is the mirror image of the daytime fog. One clock, one massage, delivered faithfully at all the wrong hours. At the center of this misalignment sits melatonin, the night signal you met earlier and after travel. Its timing is exactly what betrays you. Released by the pineal gland as darkness falls, it still follows the schedule of the place you left, arriving when your new surroundings are bright and busy rather than dim and still. Worse, daylight landing at the wrong moment can suppress it further, pushing the signal even later into your night. So the very cue meant to lower your guard and invite sleep goes quiet when you need it, then rises hours after the local world has gone dark. Offset from the wall clock by the exact number of zones you flew across. Melatonin has a daytime twin that drifts just as stubbornly. Cortisol, the morning surge you traced a little while ago. After a long crossing, it keeps firing on home time. It may crest in the middle of your destination's night, nudging you toward alertness precisely when you ache for sleep, or arrive flat and late when you most need to rise and begin the day. The two great tides of your body, one lifting you into morning, one lowering you into night, are briefly rowing against the local hour and against each other. It is part of why those first days can feel wired and exhausted at once. The wrong hormone showing up for every moment. Beneath the hormones runs a slower tide you rarely notice by feel. The daily rise and fall of your core temperature, which you glimpsed earlier as the body's quiet thermostat. What matters after travel is that, of all your rhythms, this one is among the most reluctant to move. Your body may be cooling itself for sleep when the new day is only beginning, or warming for activity deep into the local night, because the thermal curve shifts more gradually than almost anything else you carry. Long after your sleep and appetite have started to settle into the new zone, this deep rhythm can still lag behind. One reason the fog of jet lag outlasts the obvious sleeplessness. Your clock, you'll recall, is not one instrument, but many. And after travel, the ones in your gut are among the loudest complainers. The stomach, liver, and pancreas each run on schedules tuned to when you usually eat. Land in a distant zone and offer them breakfast at what their inner clock still calls midnight. And they answer with bloating, cramping, or a heaviness that has little to do with the food itself. This is why jet lag so often unsettles digestion. Your belly is keeping the time of home, still readying its enzymes and juices for meals in a city you have already left. It has not landed yet, even though the rest of you has. Hunger itself can arrive at strange hours after a long flight. The hormones that govern appetite, ghrelin, which asks you to eat, and leptin, which signals fullness, are woven into the same circadian fabric as sleep. When their timing drifts, you may feel ravenous at 3 a.m. and oddly indifferent to a midday meal. Yet the digestive clocks are unusually responsive to when you eat, even more than to light. That sensitivity is a hidden gift. A well-timed meal in your new zone can gently coax those organ clocks forward, nudging appetite back toward the local table before the brain has fully agreed to the change. The cost of this misalignment reaches the thinking mind as well. When your internal clock believes it is the dead of night, attention narrows, reaction times lengthen, and short-term memory grows slippery, no matter how bright the room around you. Studies of travelers and shift workers show measurable dips in accuracy and judgment during these misaligned windows. The brain performing as though sleep-deprived even after a full night in bed. Simple tasks demand more effort. The right word arrives a beat late. None of this reflects your true capacity. It is only your cognition being asked to perform on a schedule its clock has not yet agreed to keep. Emotion, too, keeps time. The same circadian machinery that governs sleep also helps shape mood. And when it falls out of step, feelings can turn brittle. Many travelers notice a shortened fuse in the first days. Irritability over small things. A low and formless heaviness. Or tears that seem to come from nowhere at all. This is partly the brain's mood-regulating regions running short on restorative sleep, and partly the direct pull of a clock adrift. It helps to know that this emotional weather is temporary and physiological, not a true reading of your life. As the clocks realign over the coming days, the mood tends to lift with them. By now, you can feel that not all journeys cost the same. For most people, flying east lands harder than flying west, and it is worth naming plainly why. Travel west, and you chase the sun. Your day simply stretches longer, and you drift to sleep past your usual hour. A gentle phase delay. Travel east, and the day is cut short. You must fall asleep and wake before your body is ready. A phase advance. Asking the clock to move earlier runs against its natural grain. And that single difference in direction is why the trip out and the trip home so rarely feel the same in your body. There is a quiet, elegant reason your clock resists moving earlier. The same reason you met at the very start of the night. Left in constant darkness. The human day does not run to a tidy 24 hours. It drifts a little longer, and each morning light trims that small overshoot back into line. Because the clock already leans toward lengthening, delaying it, staying up later. As westward travel invites, feels almost effortless. Advancing it, sleeping earlier, as eastward travel demands, means pushing against that built-in lean. Your body would simply rather stretch its day than shorten it, and the whole lopsided pattern of jet lag quietly inherits that one small preference. Recovery, mercifully, keeps a fairly predictable pace, and it helps to hold the number in mind. As a broad rule, your clock drifts back into alignment at roughly one time zone per day. A little quicker flying west, a little slower flying east. Cross 3 zones, and you may feel largely yourself within 3 days. Cross 8, and full realignment can take the better part of a week. There is something quietly steadying in that arithmetic. The fog and the wakefulness are not open-ended or mysterious. They are a countable process with a visible end. And each day, without any striving on your part, the clocks close a little more of the gap. Yet the clocks do not all travel home at the same speed. And here the internal desynchrony you met earlier returns with its full weight. Your brain's master timer may adjust within a few days, while the clocks in your liver, gut, and muscles lag well behind at their own slower pace. For a stretch, your body is not simply on the wrong time. It is on several different times at once. It is this scattering, more than any single delay, that produces the peculiar unwellness of the days after a flight. Recovery, then, is never one clean shift, but many, each organ finding its own way back on its own quiet schedule. This internal scattering ripples outward into how you simply feel from hour to hour. Growth hormone, which normally releases during the first deep sleep of the night, may surface at odd and unhelpful times. The immune system, itself governed by daily rhythms, can run briefly muted. Part of why travel can leave you more likely to catch whatever is going around. Blood pressure, alertness, even the timing of hunger and fatigue may each drift on their own. None of it is dangerous, and none of it is permanent. It is simply the wide reach of a single clock, touching hormone, defense, and mood alike as it works its way back into step. Step back, and a pattern gathers from all of this. Jet lag is not one broken clock, but a whole orchestra of them, each drifting home at its own pace. The brain quick, the gut slow, the temperature curve slower still. The discomfort you feel is only the sound of instruments briefly out of tune with one another, and with the world outside your window, which quietly turns the question we began with. Resetting your body clock is not about forcing a single dial to the right hour. It is about learning which signal each instrument listens for, and offering them, deliberately, in the right order. That is where the rest of this journey leads. Somewhere in these last few minutes, your own breathing may have lengthened, the words arriving from a little farther away than before. There is nothing here to follow, and nothing to fix. If your body has been carrying the weight of a clock left out of place, you can set that weight down now. The slow realignment we have been describing asks nothing of you tonight. Let one long breath move all the way out, and we drift on, gently, into how the body finds its way home. Consider the quiet traffic of light that enters your eyes at dawn. Most of it becomes the world you see, but a small share never reaches your conscious sight at all. It travels a private road called the retinohypothalamic tract, a slender bundle of nerve fibers running from the back of each eye directly into the base of your brain. This pathway carries no images, no color, no shape. It carries only one message, whether it is day. When you cross time zones, this is the channel that must be retaught, gently, one morning after another, until your inner clock and the sky outside finally agree once more. There is a kind of cell in your retina that science overlooked for more than a century. It does not help you read a page or recognize a face. Named for the pigment it carries, melanopsin, it belongs to a class called intrinsically photosensitive retinal ganglion cells. They answer most strongly to blue wavelengths near 480 nanometers, the very color that floods the sky soon after sunrise. These are the sensors that tell your body the day has begun. After a long flight, they are the instruments your recovery leans on. The reason morning sky, and not a bedside lamp, is what truly resets the hour you carry inside. Above the point where your two optic nerves cross sits a structure no larger than a grain of rice. It is called the suprachiasmatic nucleus, and it holds roughly 20,000 neurons that keep time together, firing in a slow, shared daily rhythm. This is the master clock, the conductor that sets the tempo for nearly every smaller clock in your organs and tissues. Left in constant darkness, it would still tick, running close to 24 hours, but never exactly. Light is what trims it each day to match the turning of the earth. Jet lag, in the end, is simply this quiet conductor briefly out of step with the world. The direction light shifts your clock depends entirely on when that light arrives. Light received in the morning, soon after your body's own night has ended, nudges the whole rhythm earlier, a movement scientists call a phase advance. Your clock begins to expect sleep a little sooner the next evening, and wakefulness a little sooner the next dawn. This is precisely the medicine for travel toward the east, where you land in a place whose day begins before your body is ready for it. Seek the early sky. Each morning of light pulls your inner time gently forward, closing the gap, the journey open beneath you. Now turn the timing the other way, and the effect quietly reverses. Light that reaches your eyes in the evening, as your body drifts toward its own night, pushes the rhythm later. A phase delay. Your clock starts to expect sleep further into the night, and morning further still beyond it. For travel toward the west, where the local day stretches longer than your body's does, this is the gentle tool you need. Let the late afternoon and early evening light linger a while. It coaxes your inner clock to loosen its hold on the time zone you left, and to settle, hour by patient hour, into the longer day you have arrived within. Scientists have drawn this behavior into a single shape they call the phase response curve to light. Along it, the very same brightness produces opposite results, depending only on the hour it lands. Somewhere in the deep of night lies a turning point, close to the moment your core body temperature falls to its lowest, usually a couple of hours before your habitual waking. Light just after that low pulls you earlier. Light just before it pushes you later. This is why a stray glance at a bright screen at the wrong hour can quietly undo a whole day of careful adjustment. Your clock reads timing before it ever reads intensity. It is tempting to believe that more light simply means a stronger reset. Intensity does matter. An overcast morning outdoors can still offer around 10,000 lux, while a well-lit room rarely gives more than a few hundred. But timing outranks amount. A flood of light at the wrong hour can shift your clock in the wrong direction, deepening the very lag you hope to cure. A modest dose at the right hour moves you steadily toward home. When you are recovering from travel, the question your body is truly asking is never only how bright the light is, but always, first, when it comes. Answer the when, and light becomes repair. There is a quiet mistake nearly every traveler makes without noticing. After a flight to the east, your body still runs on the old, later time, so the local evening feels like your afternoon, and bright light then feels perfectly natural. Yet evening light is exactly what an eastbound body should avoid, for it delays the clock further and suppresses the rising tide of melatonin that ought to be preparing you for sleep. In those first few nights, let the light soften as your destination darkens around you. Save your brightness for the morning instead, when it can pull you forward toward the new hour rather than hold you back in the old one. You have just heard that the same light can pull you two opposite ways, and that the evening's quiet task is to dim rather than to demand. Notice, wherever you are resting, that the room has already softened around you, and perhaps something in a restless mind has begun to soften with it, no longer needing to solve the hour, only to be held inside it. Let one slow breath leave you completely. The tightness of keeping track can loosen now. Your inner clock asks nothing of your effort to keep it turning. What comes next moves closer to the still center of all of this, the small messenger your darkness quietly sends. Follow, now, the long path that darkness travels inside you. When the suprachiasmatic clock senses that light has gone, it stops silencing a small gland near the center of your brain, the pineal. The signal does not go straight there. It winds a long, multisynaptic route, downward through the hypothalamus, along the spinal cord, and back up through nerves in your neck before it ever reaches the gland. Only then does the pineal begin to release melatonin, the hormone of night. This is why honest darkness matters so much after travel. It is the permission your clock has been waiting for, so it can finally send the message home. And here, at last, is the messenger itself. Melatonin is not a sleeping draft the body pours to knock you out. It is a signal, a nightly announcement that your clock believes the dark has truly come. Researchers even measure its rise in dim light, the dim light melatonin onset, to read a person's real internal time more honestly than any clock upon the wall. So the question you carried into this hour begins to turn. Recovering from jet lag has looked like chasing sleep. It looks now more like teaching your body when to send this quiet signal. What the coming facts follow is not how to sleep, but how to move that inner hour. Half of using light well is knowing when to hide from it. Chasing the bright morning sky helps you fly east, and lingering in evening light helps you fly west. But the opposite light, at the wrong hour, quietly drags your clock backward. This is where a simple pair of dark sunglasses becomes a genuine instrument. Wear them to shade the morning sun after a westward trip, or draw the curtains against a late glare heading east. Seeking light and avoiding it are two halves of one skill, and travelers who plan both adjust noticeably faster than those who only chase the sun. When you do seek light, let it be generous and real. Even a cloudy morning outdoors offers thousands of lux, while the brightest indoor room rarely climbs past a few hundred. So stepping outside almost always beats sitting beside a window. Aim for a solid stretch, half an hour or more, letting the light reach your open eyes without staring straight at the sun. If the sky will not cooperate or the hour is wrong, a dedicated light box of around 10,000 lux can stand in. The body reads outdoor brightness as unmistakable proof that the day has truly arrived. The melatonin you can buy is less a sleeping pill than a small, deliberate echo of your own. Taken as a supplement, it works as a chronobiotic, a signal that gently moves the clock rather than a sedative that switches you off. Research points steadily toward low doses, around 0.5 milligram, working as well as far larger tablets, because the goal is a whisper of night, not a flood. Larger amounts linger in the body and can leave you groggy without shifting the clock any further. With melatonin, more is genuinely not better. Timing and restraint are what carry the effect. Where melatonin truly earns its place is in the hour you choose to take it. Flying east. A small dose in the early evening at your destination nudges your clock forward, easing you toward an earlier sleep than your body would choose alone. Its response curve runs roughly opposite to light's, so evening is when it advances you. Flying west. Most travelers lean on light instead and take little or none. Swallowed at the wrong hour, it can even tug the clock the wrong way. This is the quiet rule beneath every recommendation. Melatonin helps only when it is placed precisely where the darkness should fall. It is worth being honest about how much melatonin can actually do. Careful reviews find it genuinely useful against jet lag, modestly speeding the clock's shift and helping sleep arrive a little sooner. Yet the effect is gentle, not miraculous, and it collapses entirely if the timing is wrong. It will not erase the weariness of crossing 8 zones in a single night. Think of it as one steady instrument in a small ensemble, playing alongside light, meals, and patience rather than soloing above them. Expecting it to fix everything on its own is the surest path to disappointment and to blaming the wrong tool. The reset can quietly begin days before you ever reach the airport. Heading east. Try sliding your bedtime and your waking an hour earlier each day for 2 or 3 days beforehand. Heading west. Let them drift later instead. It asks a little discipline while the trip still feels distant, and no one expects perfection. But even a partial shift means you step off the plane already leaning toward the new time, with less ground left to cover. Arriving halfway adjusted, rather than starting the whole climb from the very bottom, can turn a week of fog into a couple of gentle days. To make that early shifting hold, pair it with light. As you nudge your schedule before departure, meet each new, earlier morning with bright outdoor light or a light box, and let the evenings dim sooner than usual. The schedule tells your clock where to go. The light makes the moves stick, so the two speak with a single voice instead of pulling against each other. By the day you board, your inner midnight has already crept toward your destinations. The gap left to close is smaller, and the first nights abroad feel far less like wrestling your own body for sleep. Your brain's master clock does not keep time alone. Nearly every organ you carry, liver, gut, muscle, even fat, holds its own smaller clock. And these peripheral timekeepers listen less to light and more to food. When you eat sends them a powerful cue, sometimes overriding what the sky is saying. This is why crossing time zones can leave your mind ready for morning while your digestion still expects the middle of the night. Part of that hollow, unsettled feeling. Learning to move your mealtimes on purpose hands you a second lever, working beneath the light, to draw the whole body into one time. One long-studied approach loosens the old schedule's grip through the timing of food itself. Easing off eating during the flight, then taking your first real meal at the destination's mealtime, may leave those peripheral clocks readier to accept a fresh cue, so that breakfast in the new zone lands like a clear instruction to begin. The evidence here is softer than it is for light, and there is no need to push fasting into real discomfort. But simply shaping when you eat, rather than grazing by old-time habit through the flight, is a reasonable and gentle nudge toward where you are going. Once you arrive, let your meals fall firmly on local time, even when hunger disagrees. Breakfast under the morning light. A midday meal at midday. Dinner as the sky darkens. This simple rhythm tells your liver and gut which day to follow. A large meal at what your body still calls 3 in the morning only deepens the split, anchoring those inner clocks to the place you left behind. By matching your plate to the local hour, meal after meal, you give the quiet network of internal timers a steady, repeating signal until they finally agree with the sky outside your window. Caffeine belongs in the toolkit too, so long as you respect the hour. A cup in the destination's morning can lift the fog and help you stay awake through a day your body wants to sleep through, reinforcing the new schedule you are building. But its lift lingers for hours, so anything within 6 to 8 hours of your target bedtime risks holding sleep away just when you need it most. Some research even hints that late caffeine can nudge the clock itself later. Taken early and set aside in good time, it supports the reset. Taken late, it quietly works against you. Movement, it turns out, can also speak to your clock. Studies suggest that exercise in the afternoon or early evening can gently delay your rhythm, while morning activity may help advance it, a modest echo of what light does at those same hours. Beyond any shift, a walk in the destination's daylight blends two tools at once, movement and light together, and helps burn off the restless heaviness that travel leaves in the limbs. There is no need to strain. An easy outing counts fully. Like when you eat, when you choose to move becomes one more quiet vote cast for the new time. Your body's temperature does not hold steady through the day. It rises and falls on a rhythm that sleep is woven into. As night approaches, your core naturally cools, and that small descent is part of the signal to sleep. You can borrow the effect after travel. A warm bath or shower, an hour or two before bed, draws blood toward the skin, and the rebound cooling that follows mimics the body's own slide into night. On a system still arguing for daylight, this gentle push toward cooling can make an unfamiliar, early bedtime feel suddenly, genuinely possible. Keep the room where you mean to sleep on the cooler side, because falling asleep rides on that dip in core temperature. A bedroom that is too warm quietly works against you, while a cooler space. Many people find the mid-60s comfortable, helps the body shed heat and slip under. After a long flight, when your inner clock is still making its case for daylight, an overheated room only sharpens the disagreement. Lowering the thermostat, opening a window, or setting aside a heavy blanket is a small, physical way to tell a confused body that here, now, it is truly night. Notice what has quietly gathered in your hands. Light and its shadow, a low evening dose of melatonin, the timing of meals, of movement, of warmth. Each speaks to a different timekeeper, yet all can be made to say the same thing. This is the hour now. The question you carried in, how to reset your clock and recover fast, is turning into something subtler than a search for sleep. The reset looks less like a switch to flip or a body to overpower, and more like the patient work of gathering many signals until they point, together, toward one single time. Cabin air is startlingly dry, its humidity often lower than a desert's, and hours inside it leave you quietly dehydrated. Be clear-eyed here. Water does not shift your clock at all, but dehydration deepens the headache, the sluggishness, and the fog that ride alongside jet lag, stacking their weight on top of the timing problem itself. Sipping steadily through the flight, and again after you land, keeps that extra burden from gathering. Think of it not as a cure, but as clearing away noise, so the real work of light and schedule can be felt more plainly beneath it. It is tempting to treat the in-flight drink as a shortcut into sleep, yet alcohol undoes much of what you are trying to build. It may hasten drowsiness at first, but later in the night it fragments sleep and suppresses the restorative REM stages, so you rise less rested even after hours in the seat. Paired with the cabin's dryness, it worsens dehydration as well. On a body already struggling to find its footing across time zones, alcohol scatters disorder exactly where you most need calm. Setting it aside, or keeping it small, is one of the simplest kindnesses the journey allows. There is a small ritual that reorganizes everything else without costing a thing. The moment you board, set your watch and your intentions to the destination's time. It sounds trivial, yet it quietly changes every choice that follows. Instead of asking what hour your body believes it is, you begin asking what you would be doing there right now. Sleeping, eating, or seeking light, and then acting on that answer. The clock on your wrist becomes a plan rather than a reminder of the place you left. Adopting the new time this early gives all the other tools a single frame to work within. That reset watch becomes most useful across the long hours of the flight itself. Once you have adopted the destination's time, let it guide what you do aloft. Dim your window and try to rest when it is night where you are going. And stay awake, upright, and lightly lit when it is day there. Eating and dozing by the old clock only deepens the gap you will have to close on the ground. The cabin is a strange, timeless place, but choosing your sleep and your meals by the hour ahead means you begin adjusting before the wheels ever touch down. Naps are a delicate matter while your clock is still unmoored. A brief rest, held to 20 or 30 minutes, can ease the crushing afternoon heaviness without stealing from the coming night or anchoring you to the time you left. But a long, deep nap at the wrong hour does real harm, spending the sleep pressure you need for bedtime and holding your rhythm back in the old zone. If you must lie down, set a soft alarm and keep it short. The aim is only to take the edge off the day, never to hand the whole afternoon back to the past. One modern hazard deserves its own gentle warning: the glow of screens after dark. The same blue-rich light that helps reset you by morning becomes a quiet saboteur in the destination's evening, telling those specialized eye cells that day has returned and holding back the melatonin your night depends on. In the first fragile nights abroad, dim the phone, lower the laptop, or set them aside entirely as bedtime nears. Warmer, softer light in the last hour signals the darkness your clock is waiting for. What you look at before sleep, at a new hour, matters as much as what you seek at dawn. Perhaps the deepest principle beneath every tool is simple coherence. Light, food, movement, warmth, and melatonin each nudge your clock, but their power multiplies only when they agree with one another. Seek the morning light, yet eat by the old schedule, and you send your body two contradictory messages, slowing the very shift you hoped to hasten. The traveler who adjusts fastest is rarely the one with a single perfect trick, but the one whose signals all lean the same way. Before reaching for any one method, it helps to ask, does this? 2. Point my body toward the time where I now stand. Above every individual method sits one steady, humbling truth. Over the days that follow, the natural light and dark cycle of your destination does most of the healing on its own. Each morning you meet the local sun, and each night you spend in honest darkness. Your master clock drifts a little nearer home, typically shifting about an hour a day, and often faster heading west than east. Every tool you have gathered simply smooths and speeds that journey. None of them replaces it. Patience, then, is part of the method. Keep offering consistent signals, and time itself carries you the rest of the way. Let the whole toolkit rest for a moment now. You have just heard that time itself, given steady signals, carries you home. That most of the healing happens quietly on its own, asking nothing more of you. Feel the weight of your body against whatever holds it, and let it be fully held. Somewhere beneath thought, your clock is not broken. It is only loyal, still faithfully keeping the time of a place you have left. There is a strange tenderness in that. You do not have to wrench it forward by force. Given the right light at the right hour, it will find its own way back. Let that knowing loosen something in your shoulders, your jaw, your breath, and let the coming hours arrive without your effort. Be gentle with yourself if the reset comes slower than you hoped. Bodies differ in how readily they shift. Your natural chronotype, your age, the direction you flew, and how many zones you crossed all shape the pace. Some people re-anchor in a day or two, while others need most of a week for a long eastward leap. And neither is a failure. Doing everything right does not buy instant results. It buys a smoother, shorter passage through the fog. Expecting your clock to obey overnight only adds frustration to fatigue. Offer it consistency, then let it move at the honest speed it can. Here, at last, is what all these hours have been circling toward. Jet lag is not a weakness in you, and it is not your body failing. It is your body clock loyally keeping the old time zone, doing the single task it evolved to perform. Recovery, then, was never about overpowering that clock. Give it the right light at the right hour. Support it with well-timed food, movement, warmth, and rest, and it re-anchors, patiently, to where you now stand. The reset you asked about at the start was never a fight. It was only speaking to a loyal timekeeper in the language it has always understood. Traveling east is the harder direction, and it helps to know why. Flying east asks your clock to jump ahead, to sleep and wake earlier than it wants. Flying west asks it to stretch later, which the body does more easily. Since your natural rhythm already runs a little longer than 24 hours, so if east feels heavier, you aren't imagining it. You're simply climbing gently uphill against your own quiet drift. There's a soft rule worth remembering as you recover. Your clock shifts roughly one time zone each day, sometimes a little more heading west, a little less heading east. Cross 6 zones, and a full reset may take the better part of a week. This isn't slowness. It's your body moving at the only pace biology allows. One small step of the clock at a time, until the hours quietly line up again. When you fly west, the evening becomes your gentlest ally, staying in soft light a little later, then letting the next morning arrive slowly, nudges your clock to drift the way it already wants to. Later. You don't need bright screens or effort. Just let dusk hold you a while longer than your old time zone would. The clock leans into the delay, and each night the new schedule feels a little more like yours. Flying east asks the opposite, and morning is where the shift begins. Stepping into early daylight at your destination tells the master clock to move ahead, pulling your sleep and waking earlier by degrees. On those first days, the morning sun is doing quiet, invisible work. You simply have to meet it. Open a curtain, step outside, and let the light carry the instruction your willpower alone never could. On your very first morning in a new place, one small act matters more than the rest. Before coffee, before plans, let daylight reach your eyes. Even a few minutes near a window or out on a street begins anchoring your clock to this new day. Your brain has been waiting since you woke for exactly this signal. Give it early, and everything that follows — hunger, energy, sleepiness — starts finding the right hours. Sometimes the kinder move is to keep light away. In the hours when your old time zone still believes it's the middle of the night, bright light can tug your clock the wrong way. Soft rooms, dim screens, even sunglasses in a too bright evening can protect the shift you're building. Managing jet lag isn't only about seeking light. It's about meeting it at the right hour and gently declining it at the wrong one. A nap can be a friend or a thief, depending on how you take it. Kept short, around 20 minutes, and early in the day, it eases fatigue without stealing from the night. Long or late naps, though, can loosen your grip on the new schedule, leaving you wide awake at 3 in the morning. So, if tiredness pulls at you, rest briefly and early. Then let the evening sleepiness gather where it belongs. Your stomach keeps a clock too, and it listens closely. Beyond the master clock in your brain, organs like your liver and gut run their own daily rhythms, and meals help set them. Eating on your destination's schedule, even when you're not quite hungry, sends a steadying signal through the body. When your meals and your mornings agree, the whole system resyncs faster, each part quietly confirming what the light has already begun to say. Caffeine, used gently, can support the shift rather than sabotage it. A morning cup at your destination helps you stay awake into the local day, reinforcing the new schedule. But caffeine lingers for hours, so an afternoon or evening cup can hold sleep just out of reach. Let it help you meet the morning. Then set it down early enough that the night stays soft. Timing, once again, is the quiet difference. A small dose of melatonin, taken near your destination's bedtime, can nudge the clock toward the new night. It isn't a sleeping pill. It's a timing signal, a whisper that echoes the hormone your own brain releases in darkness. Low amounts, taken at the right hour, tend to help most. Since bodies differ, it's worth asking a doctor what suits you. Used thoughtfully, it simply reminds your clock which way the evening is turning. Movement, too, can gently tune your rhythm. A daytime walk or light exercise at your destination reinforces the message that these are your waking hours. Morning or afternoon activity tends to support the shift, while hard exercise late at night can leave you alert when you'd rather be drifting off. You don't need much. A slow walk in daylight does double duty, joining light and motion into a single, steadying cue for the clock. You can begin the reset before you ever leave home. In the days before flying east, going to bed and waking a little earlier softens the leap. Before flying west, drifting later does the same. Even a partial head start means fewer time zones for your clock to cross once you land. It's a quiet kindness to your future self, arriving already leaning, gently, toward the rhythm of where you're going. Jet lag isn't only for travelers. Night shift workers live a version of it every week, awake when their clock expects darkness, asked to sleep while daylight insists otherwise. Their bodies face the same tug of war between inner time and outer schedule. The same tools help. Controlled light while on shift. Darkness for sleep. Steady meal times. If you've never crossed an ocean but still feel this ache, your clock has been traveling all along. There's a gentler version many of us know well. Through the week, we wake to alarms. On weekends, we drift later and sleep in. That small swing between schedules is called social jet lag, and each Monday can feel like a short flight west that never truly happened. Your clock notices the shift and needs time to recover, keeping your sleep hours a little steadier, even on free days. Quietly spares you the Monday fog. Notice what all of this has been circling. Light and darkness. Meals and movement. Melatonin and rest. Every tool points the same direction, and not one of them forces the clock. They only offer it the signals it was always waiting for. The reset was never something you had to manufacture. It was something you stopped interrupting. And that quiet truth is where the last of tonight turns. Toward those for whom the clock moves differently. And toward you. Children carry clocks too, and they reset in their own time. Babies and young ones often adjust to a new time zone within days, though the first nights can feel long for everyone. The same gentleness works. Daylight in the morning, dim and quiet in the evening. Meals and naps sliding slowly toward local time. There's no need to rush them. Small bodies find the new rhythm, often faster than the grown-ups beside them. For older travelers, the clock can move a little more slowly, and that's simply part of how rhythms change across the years. Recovery may take an extra day or two, and mornings may matter even more, since light is still the surest signal. Patience here isn't resignation. It's respect for a body that has kept good time for a long while. Meet the morning light. Rest when it comes, and let the days do the rest. When you land, try to live by the local sky. If you arrive in daytime, stay gently awake until a reasonable local night, letting sunlight hold you up. If you arrive after dark, let the night invite you towards sleep, even if your old clock disagrees. That first alignment, matching your waking to the light around you, plants the seed of the whole recovery. One honest day on local time makes the next far easier. Some comforts help around the edges. Staying hydrated, moving your legs on a long flight, and resting when you can all ease the wear of travel, though none of them, on their own, resets the clock. Think of them as care for the vessel while the deeper work goes on. they soften the journey's toll, so that when morning light arrives, your body is comfortable enough to receive it and begin, quietly, to turn. Sometimes the trouble runs deeper than travel, and it helps to know the difference. When sleep stays scattered for weeks with no time zones to blame, when the clock seems to drift no matter what you do, a circadian rhythm disorder may be at work. These are real and well understood, not personal failings. A doctor who knows sleep can help. Naming the pattern is not alarm. It's the first gentle step towards setting it right. One such pattern is called non-24, where the body's clock never quite locks to the day. It appears most often in people who are totally blind, whose master clock receives no light to set it, so their rhythm drifts a little later each day, forever chasing the sun. Understanding this shows how deeply we all rely on light, and that when light can't reach the clock, gentle, well-timed signals and medical care can still help guide it home. Here is the reassurance beneath all of it. Your clock is remarkably faithful. Left alone with regular light and dark, it re-anchors on its own. No perfect protocol required. The tools only hurry a process your body already knows by heart. Even after the roughest journey, even after weeks of odd hours, the rhythm reaches for the day and finds it. You can trust that pull. It has been keeping time for you all along. So if these days have left you foggy and strange, be easy with yourself. You are not broken, and you are not lazy. You are simply a body briefly keeping time for two places at once, waiting for the hours to agree. That in-between feeling is not a flaw. It's the honest cost of moving faster than biology was ever built to move. It passes. It always passes. Feel how the tension can begin to loosen now. There is nothing left to force, nothing to fix by trying harder. The clock behind your eyes is already turning toward the light of wherever you are, gathering the day and the dark back into their proper order. You don't have to guide it. You only have to be patient and rest, and let the quiet work continue while you drift. The way home is already underway. And here, at the end, is the softest truth of all. You were never broken or lazy, only briefly living in two time zones at once. Your clock caught between where you were and where you are. Be patient. Meet the light when it comes. Rest when the dark invites you. And trust that, night by night, your body is finding its way home, as it always has, and as it always will. 100 facts ago, the ache of a body stuck in the wrong time zone felt like something gone wrong inside you. Now you know it's a clock, a real one, deep in the brain, simply keeping time for a place you've left. We followed the light through morning windows and evening skies, learned why flying east asks more of you than flying west, and watched the clock move its patient one time zone a day. What began as misery became a map, light, timing, and a little patience, guiding you gently back. You aren't broken by the miles you've crossed. You're a body between two times, waiting to agree with itself again. Meet the light. Be patient, and the clock always finds its way home. Perhaps these quiet hours softened the wired, weary edge of a clock still catching up. If they did, a gentle like, subscribe, or share helps another traveler, foggy at the wrong hour, find their way to this same stillness. One quiet tap for everyone still searching for the way here. Somewhere over the earth right now, a line of dawn is moving, touching one time zone, then the next, setting 1,000 clocks without effort or hurry. The same light that resets the world is reaching, in its own slow time, for the small clock behind your eyes. Let your entire being dissolve into that turning. You don't have to meet it or move toward it. It is already coming to you, as it comes to everything, gently and on time. You can let these thoughts settle now, like a clock easing into the right hour after a long day of catching up. Let your body grow heavy where it rests. If sleep comes, let it carry you into the dark your clock has been quietly reaching for all along. Sleepy science has spent many soft hours here, where the body's hidden rhythms meet the calm of the night. The next hour follows another of those rhythms down into the dark, waiting whenever you are ready. But if your eyes are closed, stay there. Rest well, weary one. Your clock knows the way home, even now, where curiosity ends and sleep begins. Good night.